All right, last video for today. Jeff from Dead Drift Consulting. This last one here is going to be the phase 1 malfunction clearance, or the tap rack drill. Okay, what is a phase 1 malfunction? A phase 1 malfunction occurs when you do everything that you are supposed to do in order to fire the gun, intentionally fire the gun. Let me adjust this. You do everything that necessary to intentionally fire the gun, and the gun goes click instead of bang. All right. There's no ignition, there's no firing of the gun. Now that could happen for a number of reasons. The chamber could be empty, like there's no chambered round in the gun. There's a malfunction with the ammunition. There's a malfunction with the gun itself. All of these things can conspire to give you that click instead of a bang. Now fortunately, the most common reason for this is there's no round in the chamber. Okay, it's rarely is it an ammo issue or a fucking error in the ammunition itself, and rarely is it a function of something has broken or gone wrong with the gun itself. Generally it's just, I hate to say it, but it's just like user error. Like I forgot to chamber the gun, or I didn't do a chambered round verification with the ejector, or cracking the slide to take or the extractor, or cracking the slide to take a look and verify that. So the remedy for this, the immediate action step for this, that immediate action is an actual term, is called the tap rack. Now I'm going to demonstrate it first, and I'll talk about the title of it. Right? We go on target, we do everything necessary in order to shoot the gun. We expect the gun to fire, press the trigger, and what do we get? You get the click, right? The slide is not locked to the rear, so as far as we know, the magazine is not empty. So the technique to fix this is to first of all ensure that the magazine is seated properly in the gun. This is the tap part, okay? And then we're racking the slide to chamber around, or to strip around off the top of the magazine in order to get that chamber. So tap and rack, and what that's done now is it's given me a bullet that's in the chamber. Okay, these are dummies. So now the gun is back in service, and theoretically it should shoot. So now we go back on target, we get another click instead of a bang. This time there's a round in the chamber. First time there was no round in the chamber. This time there's a round in the chamber. So tap, rack. It ejects the bullet that didn't fire. And then we go on to do it again. We still get a click. Tap, rack. This is shitty ammo. I just ejected two faulty rounds. Now, what just happened here is when I tapped and racked, the magazine locked to the rear. Why is that? Because the magazine is empty. So this can happen. You can wind up with an empty magazine and a completely empty gun, and the slide does not lock to the rear. And generally that's due to either a magazine malfunction, because for some reason the magazine is damaged. It's no longer giving the slide stop the upward pressure it needs in order to lock open. Or for some folks, their grip, their thumbs are landing on that slide stop release lever and preventing it from going up on an empty magazine. The magazine itself, the follower itself, is spring loaded. That's how it continues to feed bullets up into the gun. When you get to an empty magazine, the follower is actually physically presses up on the lever, the slide stop lever on the inside of the gun. So when that follower, the magazine follower, presses that up, that's the action we need in order to lock the slide to the rear. When we do that manually, we're pushing up on the slide stop lever and moving the slide to the rear, and that moves it into the notch on the slide to lock it open. If you do this, if your thumb is preventing that slide stop lever from moving up, then the slide never locks to the rear on an empty magazine. Okay, so this could be an issue of grip. But this is a solid way to figure out what the status of your gun is, and it's called immediate action because this is the very first thing that we want you to do when you get a click instead of a bang, because it reveals what the problem is, right? If I'm out of ammo, but I don't know that I'm out of ammo, and I tap rack, that slide locks to the rear. Now I can go through and reload the reload the gun and continue shooting. Okay. Now, I mentioned the terminology tap rack, right? I don't like the term tap, because tap to me implies this. This is a tap. I don't want to tap the magazine. I want to drive the magazine into the gun to ensure that it's locked in there, because sometimes these magazines can be like this, right? You can see that it's in, but it's not seated in the gun, and it's not staying in there. In this condition, first time I fire the gun, the magazine will fall out of the gun. In fact, let's actually do that and show what happens. Put my ears on, because I don't want to be stupid. Okay, so now I have a live round chambered in the gun, and I'm going to set the magazine so that it's not seated in the gun. It's just barely out, but it looks like it's in there, right? When I go to fire the gun, the magazine starts coming out of the gun, and oftentimes it will fall completely to the ground, okay? So right now, I just fired that round, and nothing chambered into the gun because the magazine was not seated up into the gun, okay? So if that's the case, now I go back on target because I don't realize it's out there, right? I do this, and I get a click instead of a bang. I seat the magazine, I rack the slide, gun now works. Tap, rack, right? That's what we just did in order to fix the problem. Now, I don't want you to just tap the magazine, right? I want you to drive that magazine. If you've watched the empty gun reload video that I did, I talk about looking the magazine into the gun and then seating it assertively with one solid push. Not banging on it, not tapping it a little bit more. I'm inserting the magazine, I'm seating it with one good assertive push, okay? Here's the thing, for me, this is how my brain processes this. When I go to seek this magazine, this is an act of faith for me, okay? It's a test, it's an act of faith. I'm having faith in the fact that by doing this, I'm locking or fully seating the magazine in there, but I can't actually see or feel anything positive to tell me that I have seated the magazine properly, and that solves the problem, okay? When we go to rack the slide, racking the slide is something very physical with lots of feedback. You can feel everything that's happening. You know that you've driven the slide all the way to the rear and let it go forward so that it's going to, you're physically doing something to fix the problem, as opposed to the tap portion, which is just, it's blind, right? I can't see or feel anything. I'm just smashing the bottom of the magazine, the base plate, in order to ensure that it's seated, okay? So I don't want you to tap the magazine. What do we do when we're tightening a bolt that's on something critical? Say in your suspension or brakes in your vehicle. We're tightening a bolt. What do most of us do? We get it tight and then we give it a little bit more. Why? Because we want to make sure that it's really tight, right? Or you're like hammering a nail into some piece of wood that you really need to stay together. We drive that nail all the way in, the head of the nail goes flush with the top of the wood. We almost always give it another whack to countersink that head, the nail head, into the wood a little bit more. Why? Because we want to make sure that it's all the way in. It's in as far as it'll go. It's going to be as secure as we can physically make it. So that's how I want you to treat the tap portion of this technique. When you get that click, I want you to drive your palm into the base plate of the magazine. Drive it in there reasonably hard. Don't wind up with a fucking broken hand or a giant bruise on your palm. But I don't want you to just kind of go through the motions where it's like click. Okay, that doesn't do anything. That won't do anything. You're going to wind up with another malfunction. You might get lucky a time or two, but we're not looking for luck here. We're looking to do something positive to fix the problem ourselves. So that's how I want you to treat the tap portion of that, all right? Drive your hand, your palm into the base plate of that magazine, reach over the top, aggressively rack that slide. We're not doing this. You're not riding the slide back forward. This is not a gentle maneuver. I want you to rip it, grip it, and rip it. And if this hand comes off, like mine does, and hits me in the shoulder, then you're doing it right, okay? That's the level of aggression and assertiveness that I want you to handle the firearm with. This is a tool, this is a hammer. I want you to use it as one. Treat it like that. Okay, so that's the phase 1 malfunction clearance drill. It is the first step in any malfunction that you experience with the gun. It always starts with that because that action, ensuring the magazine is seated and cycling the slide, will reveal what the problem is. If it doesn't fix the problem, it will reveal what a deeper problem that may take more time and more effort and different techniques, which we will get into at a later date. Okay, phase 1 malfunction. All right, that's it for now. I hope you're getting something out of these videos. They're very basic, very fundamental, but that's okay because you can never actually practice the fundamentals enough. So we're getting through it. Okay, thanks again.